I met Pooya Nabei in 2005 when he started his photographic career and started at a school called Vanarts, where I was a teacher. He was shooting some nightlife, then started shooting some portraits and some DJs, and has since made himself a fine name in fashion photography, not only in Vancouver, but down in LA, shooting for some major brands, including Vancouver's Leones and the Trump Tower project in Vancouver. I was really happy to finally catch up with Pooya after probably about 3 or 4 years of not speaking with him since I've left Vancouver. We both got really busy with life. He got married, I bought a house. So I hope you guys enjoyed this chat. We had a really good talk. Thank you very much for Pooya joining me. Here it is. It's nice to see you, and it's nice to see your face. So why don't you do a little introduction and tell people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Pooya. I'm a photographer in Vancouver. I've been probably going to do it again, but I've been doing it for 14 years, and I started shooting at nightclubs and live events because I was much younger. I like photography and I like clubbing, so put your hands together. So you start taking pictures at clubs, and then I read about them. I took a photography course. I went to I met Wayne and Mark that you may talk to them later or you may have. And I started taking photography courses. And then at some point I started going through a 1 year full-time program at Vanarts, which you were one of my instructors. And then after that, I started just quitting my day job and trying to make it as a photographer. And it's been going on since then. Yeah.
You were one of the few when we started the school that kind of carried on in a really full professional level, and I know you got the start in the nightclubs, and you started shooting some DJs.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave you, I think at the beginning, a little bit more exposure than just shooting the clubs wasn't really. That really wasn't going to push the career. You got to shoot a couple of really notable DJs.
I did, but honestly, I don't think that what kept me. I mean, I don't think that was why I'm successful. Or if I'm successful, I think what it was that I didn't have to take a day job. So I took my camera every day or every night, and it just helped me to just be connected to it. Because then all my friends were photographers. I didn't have all my focus. All I did day and night was photography and taking pictures. Because my work was that. I was making very little money, but I didn't have to go out there in a restaurant or I need to go make coffees. I didn't have to do any of that. All I did was taking pictures, and I think that persistent, just constantly doing it, it kind of pushed me to get through the bumpy road.
The bumpy road. Well, you started doing some portraits. I mean, that's where I think the DJ stuff comes in. The dead mouse portrait, him holding a teddy bear.
These are the Federally Grant, I think. Yeah,
these are images that I remember you creating, and I kind of saw stuff, take a little bit of a deviation from just doing the club stuff. And then you kind of moved into shooting fashion and fashion portraiture and that sort of that stuff. I want to know what photographers influenced you early on to kind of do that sort of work, and if those photographers also maybe influenced some of your career path or the way that you were starting to shoot, maybe the gear.
I mean, I'm like in the beginning. I think I'm a very gear-headed kind of guy. I'm a very technical oriented person. So in the beginning, my inspiration was just different lighting setups. But what I really enjoyed was looking at other photographers and how free flowing they were taking pictures, and that was very new to me. And I was really trying to, once I get over the humps of understanding technicality of how to take a proper picture, then I would start to experiment, just how to let loose and use less gear and less gear. So photography, Vancouver is a 1 second. Vancouver is a. Sorry, I got a phone call. So Vancouver is a very movie oriented industry, has that. So there's a lot of gallery shoots and gallery photography happening in Vancouver. So what kind of, sorry, I keep getting stuff bumped up here. So what happened was that Wayne, who's one of my biggest inspiration when I started, he's amazing at lighting. So naturally, my photography were all kind of like oriented around lighting and using cool setups and using as many lights as I could, and as time went and as time went on, I stopped going toward that because I kind of had that in my backpack. So I started just experimenting and connecting with people in my subjects. I don't know if that answers your questions.
Yeah, no, it does. It does a little bit, because even just saying that, because yes, I did do an interview with Wayne. It will be released before yours, so people, if they follow it, they'll be able to hear a little bit about Wayne. But that's what we talked about too. Is his lighting style was, or not even his lighting style, just his knowledge of light, the breadth, the depth, everything, and prolific. He always wanted to do something different. I saw you get inspired when Gregory Heisler came to VPW, and that was a really big. I think for a couple of us early on in the Vancouver Photo Workshop years, that was a really influential photographer, and crazy to watch that light.
It really was. Yeah, it really was, because it helped us see better. He talked about it's not about the equipment, it's about you connecting with your subject. I was like he helped us see the light and whatever the light that was there, and be able to control that and put that in the background so you can just connect to your subject. And that's like when you listen to his talks and when you talk to him, that's all he says is just connecting to your subject.
So is it still now kind of a chase of knowledge with light with you, or are there now photographers or things that inspire it, or is it still a continuation of learning light?
I think it's quite a bit less it's quite a bit less me trying to learn lighting, because I'm fortunate enough to work with great talents and assistant who helped me with that, and it's more about connecting to my subject, getting the talents in the way that I like to have, or connecting with the client. Like that's mostly what it is for me.
Okay, so
it's a lot less about lighting nowadays. Like I don't think about lighting as much anymore. Before you said, I think, how am I going to light this? How am I going to do this?
Right.
And now that's definitely the secondary.
So
option.
how would
there are
you?
days that I feel inspired, right? But most of the time it's secondary.
How would you describe your style then now? Is that? I told you they'd be easy questions, hey?
It's definitely I like to think it's a lot more cinematic and it's a lot more connected to my subject, but still, like, the emphasis on lighting is there, but it's not my main focus anymore. Like, I don't think about it as much anymore. I shoot with whatever is available sometimes. I think, I have thoughts in, like, Vancouver market, how it is, because budgets are always shrinking constantly, and you can't do with what you want. You can't walk in with a truck full of lighting. So you have to kind of start changing the way you approach projects. So you have less gear, so you can be more efficient, you can produce more work. So therefore, lighting is definitely secondary. But still, like, I think I'm shooting very cinematic when I get a chance to do it. I'm experimenting with shooting natural light, but still not good at it as much as I like to think I am.
Yeah, I'm just going
like to be.
So now full screen is just some of your overview images. I don't know if we're still synced up at the same time. But I think cinematic is a great way to introduce and kind of talk about your photography, or at least the current stuff, because as you said early on, there was a lot more lighting. It was a little bit more, not a learning curve, but sometimes even flexing that skill. And now when I'm starting to see some of the campaign work and even some of the portraits, the lighting on these are just amazing. I see a moving motorcycle now. This is stuff that I don't think early on, Pooya, some movement in the frame. You were very about crispy, tight focus, and
I was.
And then seeing this kind of progress, it's definitely more cinematic. So you touched on something, and I really want to bring this up. Do you work with a regular team, or is there a regular assistant, a regular makeup artist? Do you have a kind of set go-to team that help you out with your vision?
I think we all do. You have a set visual tech, but I mean, if they're booked up and you work with other, but yeah, I definitely do. I mean, Wayne, Richard, and like those guys always on my team if they're available. And the reason is because we're comfortable with each other. They know what I like to do, and I know how they work. So we all kind of sync up. We have a, definitely. I mean, like my photography is all me. There's a team behind me who helps me do what I do.
Hats off to them, because honestly, yes, I know the two of them, and
Really?
there's a lot of intelligence in the room when you get them on a job.
Absolutely, they do everything.
So then, when you're thinking your creative projects and you're thinking about doing some of your work, how much of this is kind of you directing the team, or how much of it kind of goes a little bit back and forth? I mean, I know the people that we're talking about, and I know VPW is very collaborative.
Yeah.
Is some of your creation collaborative, or do you kind of take the reins quite a bit?
So creative work and jobs are two different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I'm doing creative work for myself, when I'm doing editorial, everything I do, I come up myself, and well, not everything, but most of the time, I come up with the lighting and how, because there is a lot less other people involved. It's mostly myself, maybe one assistant, and then makeup artists and stylists, who they dictate the looks and makeup and hair and wardrobe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we are working, I definitely talk to the team and saying that this is what I want, and they put their input in, and usually we go with what we discuss together. Does that make sense? There are days that I I do quite a bit of movie galleries these days, and when there are days that it's the lighting is kind of the same, so we go in and we're gonna repeat the same lighting and then modify it a little bit depending on the subject. But there are days that I change it up completely, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna try this, and let's bump it up a little bit and do different things and use different modifiers, and we do that, But most of the time, it's again, because you're working with the same team, it's very, very smooth. We just
very fluid.
I don't even need to say it, very fluid.
So there, that sort of shift from going kind of fashion. Editorial to shit. I think I totally lost my train of thought there.
Like the gallery shoots?
This is what. Yeah, sorry. This is to get me back on track. With you had a lot of fashion, a lot of editorial, and now in your business model, like you say, there's more kind of gallery shoots. Explain this just a little bit. And was it just the access to it that made you move into it, or is there other reasons why you kind of got into doing that sort of work as well?
I think there's access to it. That's for sure. It's here, so it's a market to be able to, if we can approach it and get it, and that's great. And I got lucky to be able to get one or two. But what it is, Vancouver market has a different vision, has a different look than I'm suitable for it necessarily. Vancouver market is a very lifestyle-y, very, very like, think about Lululemon, very athletic. And my book is not necessarily that. My Vancouver is relatively conservative. I'm not saying I'm the most avant-garde photographer, but I'm a little bit more on the edge. I like to think so. And Vancouver, just for fashion work, was not necessarily the right market for me. So naturally, my work kind of shifted toward advertising and more galleries right now.
What are some of the campaigns that you feel were like really your work, kind of the height of your work? Which ones were the favorite ones to work on?
It's so hard to say, because every job, like for me, every job has its own challenges, and every job was a benchmark for me. Like maybe we talked about like Trump shoot that I did.
Yep.
That was a massive massive benchmark for me. But when you go back to like even like this image that you just see right in front of you, you know, that one or this, like they were all like this one, this particular one, this laundry.
I'm gonna get up. I'll get an image up here. So you give me. I'm gonna go right into.
So if you go to my overview.
Yep.
And let's see, you know, there's a girl by a window. Is there a window like coming through? Scroll down a little bit more.
Here, and I'll give
a little bit more. Yeah, somewhere on the girl lying on the floor. You know what I mean? You said lying on the floor, or by the window with the window light hitting her. I think. Yeah, one of those ones. Yeah. So for me, so that was a project. That was a client that I always worked with for a long time, and they always done their e-commerce stuff, but they want to do a campaign, so they hired me for it. And in my head, how I imagined, like they sent me some sample images. They were very square on, you know, just showcase the wardrobe, you know. And that's what I was doing the whole shoot. And then all of a sudden, I was like, you know what, Pooya, I'm gonna ask him to just give me, you know, extra 10 minutes and allow me to just take some pictures for myself, right? And this is what I created. Like I just like lit the scene for whatever it was, and I just moved around. You know, I didn't care much about focus. I didn't care much about how things are gonna look. I just free floated for 10, 15 minutes, and client ended up choosing all those ones instead of the ones that I thought I'm doing for them specifically. So that was like a benchmark for me. That was me trying to like break away from, you know, my mentality of, you know, everything needs to be cohesive, everything needs to be as the client want, and it turned out to be, you know what, I'm just going to do it the way I want to do, and more often than not, they're going to choose stuff that I'm excited for, you know. So that was a big jump for me, and like, especially on the creative shoots that I do, everyone is significant to me because I'm trying new things, and it's significant, you know, to me.
So that's what kind of keeps you learning and educating yourself, is essentially kind of the next.
It is. I mean, I don't know about now, but photography. Whoops, sorry guys. my phone vibrated, and like photography to me is so personal. It's so about getting to know yourself that, and that's like I constantly trying to understand who I am. You know, I remember I went to college to study math, science, engineering, you know, essentially. And I always thought I'm a very rigid person. You know, I'm a very square kind of guy. So when I see photographers that are just free flowing, take their camera out and start taking pictures, I'm envious of them. And I was like, I can't. And I tried to be one of those guys, and I just couldn't, because it's just not me, not how I'm wired. But as I'm getting comfortable with my gear and who I am, I'm trying to explore more and getting to know myself and how I like to work, you know?
How long did you say you're at 13 or 14 years of shooting now?
Yeah. 14 years.
Do you remember
2006, so.
Do you remember when Ralph Gibson visited Vancouver Photo Workshops, and our first little tiny and I had to drive him back to his hotel room one night. And since I was
shooting with a 50 now.
I was stuck in the car with him, and he asked me a couple of pretty big questions, and one was, what lens are you shooting? And I told him it was a wide angle, probably equivalent to a 28, and he's like, sell that and go and buy a 50. But the other thing, I'm sorry, I just got taken a little bit aside, and I'm going to edit this part out because Taryn just walked in, so there's going to be a few seconds of noise, and I'm going to come back to the Ralph Gibson thing. But no, it's okay. I lost my train of thought for a second. You got to scooch in here.
Hi, Pooya.
Hey.
How are you? You look fantastic.
I know, doesn't he look great?
You look fantastic.
Not my chain, just the beard and the hair, you know?
Awesome. Okay, I'll let you guys get back to it.
No worries. Good seeing you.
So he asked me a couple questions, and the second sort of thing, or the second thing that stands out in my mind is how long have you been shooting? And I think at that time it was 15 years, and he said, well, you're almost there. And I was like,
really? Wow.
But hearing you talk about your photography now is a lot different than hearing you talk about your photography earlier on. I remember being in the school and talking about, kind of the taking your camera out and always shooting. And like you said, shooting loose. And you're like, no, I don't take my camera out unless I'm kind of getting paid for it or I'm doing a job.
Yeah.
And it seemed very foreign to me at the time.
Yeah.
But again, that's where you belonged and that's where it had to be. But now you're at this point where some of those things are like, this is really interesting. I think this is interesting to hear you talk about you and learning about yourself through the photography.
Yeah. I think as I get older and naturally, I think I was 24 when I was 24, 26 when I was going through, no, maybe 24, 26 when I was going to Vanarts, so I was much younger. But as you grow old, you try to understand who you are. You get to know yourself a little bit better. So you try to, experiment a little bit. But I still like that part of me that still won't take pictures unless there's a purpose. That's still there.
Is it?
Like I'm not one of those guys. It's still there. Like with COVID going around and everywhere's closing, I started taking pictures. And if you go to my Instagram, the first picture that I started doing. Here, let me pull it up let me pull myself up. So I'm doing this COVID project. So if you look at, basically I'm on a rooftop.
You on the rooftop? Sorry.
Yeah, so I scroll down a little bit more. I think I'm in a little bit more. Bottom left. There we go. Bottom left.
Here.
Left side. So that picture was me trying to start a new project, take a picture every day. But even then, I didn't do it simple. You know what I mean? I didn't just take a portrait of myself without anything. I had to pull up a scrim and, reflectors and tether it, shoot it with a bigger camera. And I'm like, it's still me. Like, however I try, I try to not make it complicated, but for some reason it always is. And I'm making my peace with it, And it doesn't, I do. There are pictures that I take my camera and start doing, and it's still me, and it makes me make it a bigger effort each time that I want to do this shot and take a picture. But I'm not fighting it anymore.
Is this maybe kind of part of the engineering root of you? Like you're very detailed and very meticulous?
Maybe. I think it's. I think consistency and consistency is very important to me. So when I started, because when you start a project, you have a lot of energy. You just want to do this. You go big, and then continually doing this, especially during this time, it's very hard. It takes a lot of energy. So, but it is part of me. I can't fight it. Not if I'm wired this way, right? So. This is what it is.
Well, no, that's awesome.
Makes me a different photographer than another person, naturally. You know what I mean? It's that's how we're different. Every photographer is different. We all shoot different stuff because of that, because of our roots and how we were raised in a way.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your control. You also won some awards for your retouching, right?
No,
was it not your retouching?
Not for retouching.
Oh.
Not my retouching, just for doing composite work, but I didn't do the retouching of those.
But still, winning awards in a pretty technical kind of.
Yeah, we did. I worked with. So before I got the Trump project, I was very inspired by a photographer named. I can't think of his name. Even Mark brought it here to town. I can't remember his name. He did a lot of composite work, so I got very excited for it. And of course, I would be attracted to it because I'm a technical guy. So I talked to Steve Pinter, who's a very good retoucher in town. I decided to do a couple of collaborations. I had a client at the time. That was our first shoot that we did together, who wanted to shoot in the forest, and we really couldn't shoot in forest at that time of the year and where we wanted to go. So we decided to shoot the stuff on location, shoot the location, and then come back and do a composite on it.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the long image, but I'm only obviously.
The thing is in their advertising, I think. scroll down the bottom.
Yours and under advertising? Okay. Well, let's talk about that as I try and find this picture. Talk about that, because the process of doing that, and as soon as I get it up and everybody can see it, they'll understand.
You gotta scroll down a lot. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. This was no small feat.
No, I think that was the most challenging project I've ever done today.
Can I even zoom in on it, or no? We're just kind of stuck to screen size.
I think the screen size. I mean, you can. I think Apple Plus.
Yeah.
They'll kind of zoom into the. There we go.
Oh no! It fights it. It fights it back. Great website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's good. It resizes it. So your website is underneath your name through most of this. So it's pooyanabei.com, and you can see this under advertising. But this image, when it was produced, was physically, how long was it in real life? Like, how big was this?
I think it was a whole block. So maybe 100 to 200 meters. 200 meters, I think. It's quite long on Georgia.
And how many shots did it take you to kind of produce this?
I mean, I can't tell the number of shots because everything is shot separately, but each character you see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are separate shots. And then the table, the chandelier, everything on the table was shot different stages. The cake was a shot of its own. The roasted cake was a shot of its own, and everything was shot separately, and even the reflections on some of the dishware were shot separately to put in.
Oh, really? Right down to that?
Well, yeah, because I mean, the reflection on the dishes were
right
in studio, and we had to change it.
So this was obviously a learning curve, and it was obviously
it was, but then again, I worked with the best people that I could have, and they helped me through it. Like, I had Steve Pinter on set. He explained to me what I need to do and what I need to get. So I collaborated with him. He told me what we need, and I made sure we get it with the right angle, the right resolution. I worked with Wayne, who told me, okay, if you want to convey like a night mood in the night, we gotta light it like this, and we gotta do the edge lighting that makes it easier to separate it. We gotta use this kind of background, and all fell into places. We had a great producer, we had great talents. It makes it. I mean, it's not easy, but it's by the time you get to the shooting day, it's pretty easy. It just up to that point is very difficult. I remember going to the park and putting tables together, checking out the right angle at the edge of the table, like if it would make sense for the table to be further to the left or further to the right,
Crazy. Is that still one of the biggest jobs?
I think it's the biggest job I've done, yeah, until today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was pretty.
It really was. It was a very unique job. I think jobs like that kind of caliber of job is very rare in Vancouver. And I was lucky enough to get it.
It's rare in the world. Yeah, it really is. And it was, I watched, this was early on in your career, and this was amazing to watch happen. And, you were in Vancouver Photo Workshops and that family of people. And, we obviously all talked about that. And this is the sort of thing that kind of, when I think about, careers, you're like, you get that one lucky job sometimes, and this was a good one, and it helped you, but it's not that you stopped here. And I think that this is what's important. When I look at your work now, it's cinematic, but it is not. This is not like you didn't take the Joe Rossi approach to this and just do like, I'm going to do composite work for the rest of my career because I know how to do this.
Yeah.
You worked after this to come up with more, and you're still now thinking about more cinematic stuff, and it's awesome to watch you grow, and it's these images still hold up. It's great. Where do you see yourself kind of going with some of this in the next 3 to 5 years? I
personally think I want to do more celebrity work, more more celebrity work, more movie galleries. But like the older I'm getting, I'm more attracted to doing portraitures and doing even fashion portraitures where I get to talk to my subject a little bit, and still have that connection with my subject. And I think that's what I enjoy the most. Vancouver, if I want to stay in Vancouver, that's where my photography goes. If I get a chance to move to LA or New York, then my work would be more fashion oriented and again very cinematic. And every time, like I've done a lot of experiments. I've tried to shoot like other photographers, and I just couldn't. I tried many, many, many times. It was either hard for me, or when I look at their work, I prefer their work more than my own, which tells me that I'm not doing it right. I'm not connecting to my own work.
Yep, not connecting yet.
So, but every time I look at, like, if I look at overview, and to me, all that images that I see with my splash screens, it's very me, and I like it. It has elements of me in it, and I think I'm going to continue because now that I found it, I'm not going to let it go.
How do you connect with? Go.
Sorry, I've always said every time I'm doing one of these talks, and one of the things one of the biggest learning things that I had to learn was never repeat yourself, and always try to raise to whatever you got to make yourself do one better. And a few years ago, like maybe 6 years, older than that, like, yes, maybe 9 years ago, 8 years ago, I had this client who was great job. But I ended up just repeating what I was doing because the client was just always happy and was just okay with whatever I was doing. And I kept repeating it. And at some point, on the last shoot that I was doing it, I kind of realized that this is the last shoot that I'm ever going to do for him, because he kind of predicted what I was doing. And I was just not exciting enough anymore. And that was it. So ever since then, no matter what the job is, what the client is, I'm trying to do one better. I mean, there may be a job that, it's similar to the previous one, but the one after, I'm definitely going to change the lighting a little bit, do something different with my subject, because you got to constantly reinvent yourself, not change completely, but reinvent yourself, add something new to it. You want to make a dish, you constantly change the spice a little bit, even though it's such a good dish. In order to serve it to the same guest, you always have to change it up a little bit, Yeah. I don't know.
That's interesting.
That's where my work is going.
Yeah. That's where my work is going. One better all the time.
One better. It's hard, but I'm trying on it.
So how do you find now, that difference between moving to fashion and then moving to celebrity and talking about your subjects? Like, you really are talking about your connection with your subject and trying to work on that or see what that means to you. How do you connect with your subjects? Like, do you do some research on them? Are you, what do you do on set? Do you have a little bit of a secret? Like, I'm going to pull out of my pocket, I got a couple of good questions.
No, I don't. There's no secret. I just be who I am. If I'm eccentric, I try to be eccentric in front of them, and they always find something odd and interesting, either about me or about themselves. I ask questions about things that are not related to work. If I'm shooting, I ask them, what they're doing in town, if they have family, kids. I have that personality to be able to get some good questions out of my subjects, and I connect with them on a personal level, and that's what I try to. I relate to them. I try to ask questions that they don't usually get asked for. I'll try to make the shoot to be anything but about the shoot. At least my presence there. Especially if I'm just shooting celebrity, the first thing I say, I'm gonna make it as quick as possible for you so you can get out of here. And they're always like that.
I like this. There was one other question I had sitting here that I think is important for me to ask now. In your opinion, what makes an image good as opposed to average? When you're looking at your work, is there a connection with your subject?
My own work?
Yeah. You could start the other way and say other people's work first, so and then move into your own.
My own work, it's when I'm doing something new, I like that kind of work for myself. needs to have emotions in the picture. I think you gotta have emotion. You gotta convey a mood. You gotta conveying a mood, making it not. I, I, you gotta have. It needs to have a mood, an authentic mood, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are, it needs to feel quiet to me. I think I'm enjoying a lot of quiet shots. I mean, I'm just looking at these. I mean, it needs to be. It's a good question. I honestly don't know because it's when I'm photographing people, when I'm looking at my images going through, like I like them for different reasons, But for other people, when I look at their work, it needs to convey a mood. It needs to feel personal. It needs to feel different. And it shouldn't look generic, but I mean, that's very hard. I mean, there's pictures, it's very broad way of putting it.
Oh.
You need to have a connection with your subject. I think it needs to feel like that person is there just for you. Maybe that's, I'm gonna maybe put it like that. That person is there just for me, or I'm the only one surrounded at that moment. If that makes sense.
It does. And I think this is a great place to kind of sum up a little bit. Is there anything that you would tell a new photographer coming into this? What would you tell a young Pooya? You're at 15 years. Is there a nugget of information that you would have passed on to yourself to maybe save yourself a little bit of stress, or?
You gotta be consistent. Consistency is the key in photography, in business. Like, photography is not the only thing that you need to be good at. You gotta be good at business, and I think that's the key. You're not just a photographer. I'm not saying you're gonna be. I know you gotta be an accountant. You gotta be a retoucher. But it's not. You gotta be good at business. You gotta be good at marketing. So you gotta be able to connect to people. And I think that's the key. You gotta be consistent. You gotta be able to. Don't give up. There's hard times. I think one of my biggest reasons for success is I never took a day job. I was lucky to just constantly. I kept my overheads very, very low. To be able to ride the months that there was nothing coming in. And I was in debt until I did that Trump Tower. I was in a lot of debt. And that one lucky break. Pulled me out. And I think you're as good as you ever gonna be. While I was going to school, I thought, what? I'm gonna present my portfolio when it's good and ready, and I'm gonna get the next big ad. But it's never like that, because you're gonna grow, and the client gonna watch you grow. Like if I'm just out of school, show your book to the clients that you want to shoot for. And that's fine. If it's not that great, it's fine, because the next promo that you're gonna send them, the next time you're gonna contact them, they see, hey, like Joe is growing, Steve is growing. Oh, this is cool stuff he's doing. He's constantly getting better and better and better. And there is a point that you're gonna remember you, because you had this huge trajectory that, all right, I'm gonna give him a call now because they're ready, or I'm ready for them, And never be shy. Like, don't be shy about it,
You are good at putting your own work out there, and you've always been good at business, which is a great thing to see a photographer have a base with, because there's not a lot. There's a lot of people that have hobbies and sometimes get lost in the business world of things.
Actually, sorry to interrupt. One more thing is always work with the people that are way better than you. I think, because then you learn from them. I think that's actually one of another key to success is always work with people that are way better than you, because it's going to contribute so much more. Even like if I work with a makeup artist has tremendous amount of experience, like has 30 years experience or 20 years of experience or 15 years of experience, they're not just good at makeup. They're good at telling you what looks good in a picture. So they can see more. If I was working with this makeup artist, I don't know if I should drop names.
Go ahead.
But Sonia, I've worked with Sonia. Sonia is an amazing makeup artist, and I worked with her as much as I could in every of my shoot. And once I was shooting this actor at Shangri-La, and I was just taking pictures, and Sonia was like, "Pooya, like you gotta close those windows because they just don't look right." And I immediately closed them, and I looked at back, and it's like, oh my god, it just looks so much better. And it's just because she has just that much more experience than me. She knows what looks good. She knows what looks right. And they just have so much to contribute when you're working with people that just have more experience.
Yeah. This is something that, the reason why I started some of these conversations is I miss being surrounded by a group of people that are continuously creative and constantly trying to better themselves. And I miss that. So that's part of, the selfish reason of why I get to start up these conversations and get to catch up with you and talk about careers.
Yeah, it's great. It's true, Six. Like I'm in my office alone, and it really sucks. Like I'm talking, like I'm excited, what I'm going to do and what I'm going to bring up. But it's exhausting, Sometimes I'm in a routine of coming to my office, pour myself a coffee, and sit down and not get much done because it's just one of those blah days. But if it keeps repeating itself, you find yourself in this downward spiral, right? And when I was in VPW, when I was surrounded with other photographers, like I see, oh, Wayne is doing something, Six is doing something, Mark is in, then naturally I feel like I need to contribute to this, so I'm a lot more active. But being alone and working alone in an office, it sucks sometimes. Sorry.
That's all right.
I don't know what happened.
That's okay.
Sorry.
And it's only because I've not only talked with Mark a little bit about this, but I actually talked to Vince, and I don't know.
Sorry.
Vince Hemmingson.
To Vince. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
He's doing pretty well. But I wanted to kind of bring up some of the tattoo project because that's now in my background. That is something, this is the last little thing I wanted to bring up. Looking at some of these images, your early images, these are different than most of the other stuff that you've created. And I remember this weekend because it was 3 days of 12 of us and a whole bunch of models. And this is really kind of the high point of being at a place like VPW where we could have literally, 30, 40 models come in and 12 of us get to pick through this and create some amazing images. And, again, these stand out in my head quite a bit, probably because the whole weekend stands out in my head. But it also shows the importance of kind of working in a creative environment, working and being inspired by people that sometimes it's out of your comfort zone. It's not what you normally do.
Yeah.
All right.
It's great. Good project, man.
Well, thank you. And don't hang up, but I'm going to thank you very much for this. And we'll say our goodbyes.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks to Pooya for taking a little bit of time out during his lockdown and COVID and have a little video chat with me. Appreciate the time. Thank you very much. For everybody else, check out his website, pooyanabei.com. He's also on Facebook and Instagram. So be sure to check out all this social stuff. Thank you very much to Pretty in the Algorithm, who makes all of this possible. See you next time.